welcome to Find It. We are here on this Wednesday evening with a visionary. Oh my goodness, you are not going to believe the guest we have tonight. I consider him a VIP. His name is Brian Proctor, and he recently published a book called My Father Knew the Secret: Growing Up with Bob Proctor. And I am telling you, folks, I read this book in 2 days. I'm going to read it and read it and read it again. And I've already bought copies for my family. Stick around if you want to understand why, and you're going to want to get a copy. Hang tight. We're going to bring Brian right up after this video. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Debbie. I got to say, that's impressive. That was a nice little video you put together.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Well, you know what? You're special. You deserve that. And my producer in the back, she always makes me look good. I give her the pictures and she puts them together. So it's awesome. But I got to tell you, I'm very inspired by the story in the book. I felt like I was in your own. I felt like you took us through the journey of your life living with Bob Proctor and your own life too, and how he implemented those same values and concepts into your life. Mm-hmm. And before the show, I was just saying, it's incredible because you've done so much on your own before you went and worked with your dad alongside of him for nearly 30 years. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you have so much to offer. And who is more certified to talk about Bob Proctor and what he trailblazed through life than his son? And that's why I've had this old T-shirt for so long. And when I was trying to figure out what to wear, I didn't have any Italian suits, Brian. So I thought, he is a visionary. He was a visionary. And I'm going to wear this old T-shirt because of that. But anyway, let's get into this. I have 3 pages of questions that I probably won't get into all of them. But to start with, I wanted to talk about the endorsements. Like, there's 13 endorsements. They're all very impressive. Mm-hmm. And then there's the foreword was written by Price Pritchett. That's a tongue twister, apparently. And the author of U Squared. So how did that foreword become, or that person become the person you chose to write the foreword?
Price, if you know Price Pritchett at all, he is a really, really special man. Very, very smart guy. The book that he wrote, U Squared, was, if you ever hear my father talk about his 5 top books or his 5 favorite books, U Squared is always in there. It was always in there. Mm-hmm. And we got to meet Price probably 5 years ago in Los Angeles. Price came to one of our seminars. He wanted to come in and see and meet us. And we went out for dinner afterwards. And I was just so impressed with this man. He was so kind, so generous. He's from Texas. He's got that nice Southern drawl, you know, and there's so many people I could call on to write the foreword for the book. I know so many people in the industry, anybody that you'd know, I know. But the way Dad felt about Price's book and the way that he wrote, I just thought, you know what, that would be a way to honor my father as well. So Price was the one I went to. He's the one I asked, and he doesn't do this kind of stuff normally. And he did it very quickly, very easily. And I was really happy about it.
Oh, it was beautifully written. It was, and it just seemed so heartfelt. And I thought, gosh, they definitely knew him. And I did read in the book where it was one of your father's top 5 books. Now, you started writing this book, My Father Knew the Secret, when your dad was still living, in 2019, right?
I did. So I started this book, about 4 years ago. Didn't have a clue what the title was going to be. That's a funny story in itself, but my wife, I was talking with her 4 years ago, and I said to her, Corey, I really had this urge to write a book. And I wasn't quite sure where I'd go with it or what it would be, all about everything I've learned over my lifetime. And the first thing she said to me, she said, well, Brian, at the seminars, everybody's coming up to you asking you, what's it like to be Bob Proctor's son? So why don't you write about that? And it was a no-brainer from that point. I was, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to write everything I learned from my father growing up and how he treated me as a son, rather than just somebody that's on the stage, what he's like behind the scenes. And so I started writing it when he was alive, and he knew I was writing it. He loved the idea of it. We talked every morning. My dad and I were very, very close. And so we would talk a lot about the book and different things, and he would share ideas with me and different stories. We make sure we had the story right, and it was actually a lot of fun. And Dad always said to me, "Take your time, Brian. Take your time." And when I was struggling with a title, he says, "Don't worry about it. It'll come when it's supposed to come." And I think I said in the book, I felt like afterwards, I thought, maybe I think he knew that he wasn't going to be here when the book came out. And that's okay, because it gave the book a different spin, because I was able to write some things after he was gone. And the title for the book came to me in the middle of the night. I was actually having a dream about my father. And I woke up clear as clear it can be at like 3 a.m. in the morning. And the title, My Father Knew the Secret, was just there. So I wrote it down real quick.
That
And
gives me chills.
yeah, it was, so I feel my father knows the title. I think he's the one who gave it to me. It just felt right. He was always at the top of the personal development field, as a speaker. And when the movie The Secret came out, that propelled him to a whole nother level of exposure. After that, he was on Larry King Live a couple of times. He was on Ellen DeGeneres, Nightline, lots of different shows. And he was 72 years old when that happened. And it really took his business to a whole nother level. So I thought it's kind of a cool way to honor, what elevated him at that one point. But also, I feel my father really did know the secret. And the secret is in that book. And that secret is different for all of us. But I think, as you've discovered, different stories will resonate with you in a different way. And you'll learn some things in that book, the things that he taught me as his son, that have really helped me live a great life. Everything's in there. So, it's an easy way to get, it's a book. It's not thousands and thousands of dollars of a course or anything of that nature. It's a book, and it will give you everything you need to really change the course of your life, if that's what you're looking to do, or just elevate what you're currently doing.
I'm going to tell you something, and it's fairly priced too, in my opinion, $17 and some change. Oh, I want to say, my listeners, whoever's listening right now, I'm giving 2 books away tonight. So make sure we know you're here. Ask a question, just say hello in the comments, because then I'll do a drawing and 2 of you are going to win a book. But, it's a nice site. It's not even the site. It could be, I know one of your dad's favorite books was like 36 pages or something.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
So yes, that's right. So It's like, it doesn't matter. It's the content. And I'm going to tell you something. I couldn't put it down. I was like, I got a job to do. I got to work. I got to put this down. And I'd read it in the evening, and I'd get up extra early and read some more. And it grabs me. But I want to go back to what your dad said to you when he must have felt like you were rushing it a little bit, the book, because you wanted to, I think in your mind, you wanted him to be there when you published it. Yeah. And he also said, you said in the book, don't rush it, Bri. It'll be done when it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you guys, like even that is just, don't rush it. It'll be done when it's supposed to be. That goes in line with the philosophy of his life too. And it's incredible. I mean, you guys are going to love it. So, I love that you can pick the book up really anywhere and go to any chapter and start reading it. And then at the end, there's a place for notes, but you also say thoughts to consider that make you start thinking about your own life and what you want for your future. And it's almost like a workbook inside of a book, and I'm very impressed, clearly.
Thank you.
How
You
did
know,
you decide to do that?
well, the consider points was actually my wife's idea.
Oh, geez, Corey, we got to keep her around.
No, we definitely got to keep her around. You know what? And I thought it was brilliant because I didn't want to be preaching, for lack of better words. I didn't want to be just teaching. I really wanted to share the lessons in a conversational tone, and the way I learned from my father. And so we thought, it'd be great to just be able to pretty much tell a story. And then the consider points are the teaching portion, but it's not an in your face teaching. It's just a way to reflect on the lesson that was told, and get you to think about how you can apply it in your life so that you can make change in your life right now. So I hope anyway, my hope is that it's written in a way that people can read it easily and will be able to take action steps right away, rather than just trying to think of what do I do now that I've read this.
Mhm.
I really want people to be able to take action right away to
Mhm.
alter their life. I think we can all have a better life no matter where we're at. And
Mhm.
it's easier than you think. It really is. And I think you've discovered that after just reading the book.
Oh yeah, it's a page turner, and also, so I did not do any. I'm going to read it again,
Mhm.
and I'm going to get myself in a place where I can honestly work on the notes and the thoughts to consider at the end, where I have more time, because I literally just got the book mailed to me and I had 2 days to read it. And I thought, no, I need to give this my full attention and thought process, because and be intentional with it. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to read it, and that's why I bought copies for my family, because you don't want to share this with other people, because I'm going to write in that. And it's my own stuff. So that everyone needs their own copy. But repetition through reading creates change. I quoted that out of the book. And better is a good word. Your dad liked better is a good word. Um, and then it went into honor who you are today and imagine how you can improve.
Mhm.
That is powerful.
Well,
Honor who you are today.
I think all we have is the here and now, right now. And we have to honor wherever we are at right now, good or bad. We are just where we are. And I think when we can honor where we're at, then we're able to move forward and build the life that we truly want to build
Hmm.
with intention. I think most of the time we just, people wake up and they just kind of carry on their day. They go to bed and then they wake up the next day and
Yeah.
they just their life just is. Whereas, my father always taught me that we should live our life with intention, live in the present moment, and be the best version of us every day. And if we can do that and we can live with intention, boy, we can accomplish so much more. It's really not that difficult.
Yeah. Hi, Kellen Ann. Thanks for being here. It's, you guys, it's a different type of delivery of a message than anything I've ever read. So, while we can talk about little things, I'll bring up things that really hit me when I was reading the book. But the book in its entirety, we could talk for 100 years and delve into this book and the meaning and the concepts and all of it for life, for a lifetime. So, you guys, I'm just telling you, it's amazing. So the impression of increase, can you explain that a little more to me? I just need a little of your flair from a little more impression of increase.
Yeah, impression of increase is probably it's definitely one of the top lessons I ever learned, from Dad, and I learned it when I was young. I'll just tell you the quick story around it.
Okay.
We had just moved to Chicago. I think I was 9 years old, going into grade 4, and by that time we had already lived in Toronto. Then we moved to England. We moved back to Toronto, and then we moved to Chicago. So by grade 4, I'm already in my fourth different school.
Wow.
And I just hated being that new kid. And I can remember sitting with Dad and saying to him that, I was really nervous about going to school again. I'm the new kid. At that point, I'm in a new country. And so, he basically sat me down and he says, Brian, this is all you need to do. He says, just put these 4 letters across the forehead of whoever you're speaking to, MMFI. And those letters stand for make me feel important. if you can make everybody that you're talking to feel important, feel seen, you're going to get on with the world in a great way. You're going to make friends really easily, and you'll never have anything to worry about. And that's what I did. So I started to be more engaged when I was talking to people. I was actually asking them questions, and I was sincerely interested in them. And when you do that, boy, everything. And so I started doing that all through my life. And I know when I got into real estate, that was a big part of my success, because I was getting referrals like crazy, because everybody wanted to deal with me, because I made them feel seen, heard, and important. And so the impression of increase is basically this: what can you do to touch or leave anybody you've come in contact with in that day feeling better because they came in contact with you? And if you can do that, you're going to potentially change somebody's day, but you could potentially change their life by something simple that you do, by letting them know that they are seen. And we all want to be seen. You go to a party, if you meet that person that just spills and talks everything all about themselves, sometimes you just kind of want to get away. But if you meet somebody that's engaging, and they're interested in you, and they're asking you interesting questions, and they're actually listening, boy, you just want to talk to that person all night long. And that's it. It's just leaving people with the impression of increase, that they feel better because they were in contact with you that day. It's a great way to live. And I promise you that your life will never be the same if you start dealing with people in that way.
That's incredible. And also, when you mentioned real estate, so you were in real estate for quite a few years before you ended up going and working with your father. And with you so close to your dad, believing in the concepts that he was, teaching, and you, even while you're in real estate, would go to his seminars to listen to him and get inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you didn't immediately go work with him?
Well, I actually did. So I started to work with him when I was 18 years old. And I worked with him until my early 20s, 24, 25 years old. And that's when I left to go into real estate. At that point, I didn't feel like I was my own person. I felt like I was just, I was Bob's son. I was, I didn't want to look like I was being taken care of. I wanted to forge out and do my own thing and prove that I could do it on my own. So I actually left the seminar company, and I got into real estate at 20. I would just turn 26 years old. And it's amazing. I applied everything I learned from my father into real estate. And my first year in real estate, 26 years old, I made it into the top 100 of international real estate firm, like internationally, not just nationwide. I'll never forget. I mean, it was back in the late 80s. And I had never earned a lot of money. I'll just give you the straight goods. Yeah, I think the most I ever earned was maybe $18,000 in a year, back when I was, 24, 25 years old. My first month in real estate, I earned over $40,000.
Awesome.
It just started to increase from there. And that was as a rookie. And it was all because I applied everything my father taught me out there. And then, several years later, he talked me into coming back to the business, and then I was ready. It felt right. And it was.
And then, first of all, I want to talk about what you did when you went back to his company. I don't want to forget that, but I'm real excited, so I might. But you know what I thought of when you were just saying at 26, you went into real estate, and that was a huge shift in your life, because you were forging your own way. And your dad at 26, things at his age at 26, that's when things started to.
That's when things started happening for him. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to then. You did real estate for a while, and then was it a calling to come back to work with your dad? What made you make the shift back into working with your father?
Really, the shift was, I was getting burnt out in real estate. Okay. If I'm to be honest, I didn't like working all the evenings and weekends. I didn't feel like my time was my own. Gotcha. And That was just part of what you had to do at that time to be super successful. And Dad had always been trying to get me to come back into the business. He knew that I could do something that would help it. And I don't know, I was ready. It felt right. I know I had done my own thing. So now I could go in there and just do my own thing my way. And it was good. So I made the decision to go back, and it was the right move. It was the right move.
That makes so much sense to me. And I see a lot of value in that, Brian. And I think that was very manly of you to just say, you know, for my own psyche too, I want to be able to show that I can do this, not for anyone else, but for yourself,
right,
that you can. And so you did. And then when you went back to work with your dad, you didn't love the position you were in at first. And you thought you had this idea come to you. And it was before all the email marketing ever, because what year was it that you created this email marketing?
Yeah, it was in 1999, 2000.
Yes.
I had been selling seminars, and I wasn't excited about selling seminars. It just wasn't doing it for me. And so Dad was always really supportive. He says, well, then Brian, find your own way to contribute. And he says, I'll support you in whatever way you want to contribute. If that's not what you want to do, then don't do it. And he was always really good that way. So I thought, you know, in real estate, what made me successful was the referrals that I would get. And I stayed in touch with my clients. I always stayed in touch with my clients. And that's what made a big difference. So I thought the seminar business, we're always going after, you know, companies to bring them in to do programs and seminars for. And it was always like we're looking for new business. So I thought, boy, you know, there's got to be a way that we can stay in touch with the existing clients. And I had always loved these little magazines when I was a kid called Bits and Pieces. They're little tiny magazine things that are just filled with inspirational quotes and little short stories that were uplifting stories. So I thought, why not build a system where I would email our clients just an inspirational quote every day. And then every Friday I would send them an uplifting story. And I'll tell you, Debbie, going into this, I'd never owned a computer, never had an email address. So, you know,
I mean, that's what made me laugh when I read about that, because I was like, how does one even create an idea like this without really even having the tools?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing with Dad. And this is something I always learned. You just have to get an idea, and then you just got to step into it and start taking action. And we, you know, call it imperfect action, because, you know, it's not always going to be right. You'll learn along the way. But I knew that this was going to be valuable. And we had, I think, 300 people at the time that we had email addresses for. So I started to do this. Well, the response I was getting was incredible. You know, quote of the day services were not out there yet.
No,
So,
you
know,
basically the quote of the day, people. I mean, that just,
yeah, I mean,
it tickles me, because that's an awesome story. I love this.
and it's a simple idea, but it was a great way to stay in touch. And the feedback I got from people, you know, from all around the world as it started to grow was incredible. So it was, you know, I was getting what I call psychic income. And that's a really, really nice thing. Well, what it did was, you know, it started to build. I won't get through all the tough parts of it, but it was not easy. That was before web servers and everything that there is today.
Yes.
So it was a struggle, and it was a real learning curve. But I knew that it was the right thing to do, and we were onto something. So when things like The Secret Movie came out, and that, we were ready for the onslaught of people. We had a way to capture their information, their email addresses, and stay in touch with them. So it really elevated our business. But even more than that, it introduced me to the affiliate world, affiliate marketing, and marketing other products, and doing joint ventures with other companies. And it's a big deal out there. You know, people aren't aware. There's so much that can be done online now, that you can earn incredible sums of income if you just find something you're passionate about and then step into it and just start doing it.
Yeah, and one of the lessons in the book, really, that I was getting from, I felt like I was vibing Bob Proctor. I was like, oh my gosh, he is. And let's just say this too. You have taken the amazing privilege of having Bob Proctor as your father, and and publishing this book to share that with all of us. And I'm just appreciative to it. It's share this. It doesn't have to be a secret,
Right.
I love it. So I love the where he had said personal development has no finish line. And that spoke to me too, because, I know and I believe that from everything that I've read about Bob Proctor thus far is that he was constantly learning and growing as a human being, even up until a few days before he died. He wanted to read and learn new things. Is that right?
That is right. So here's the cool thing about Dad is he was always studying. He never thought he knew it all. So many people in the business, their egos can take over and they think they know it all and they
Yeah.
stop studying. Dad studied every.
Oh, we got a little, there he comes. There he's back. Oh,
Did
no,
you lose me?
I like just a little. You were talking about how he studied. He didn't have a big ego. He wanted to continue learning. He never felt like he always knew everything.
Yeah, he never felt like he knew everything. So he studied every day, and he studied many, many things. But the best example of it that I can say is he was given this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill back in 1961, or
1961, the year you were born.
1961, the year I was born. And he studied that book every single day. I was 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was doing an online event with some folks over in Copenhagen. And I was in Toronto at the time. So I was at my father and his wife Linda's house. And I said to Linda, Linda, can I get that book? I'd love to have that to hold for this meeting I was doing. And she said, sure. So I got the book. Well, this book is, if you've ever seen any videos of my father, Bob Proctor, he's forever holding this book, Think and Grow Rich, up. And everybody always wanted to give him a new book or get this book rebound. He would have nothing to do with it because this book was like his friend. And when I got it and held it, I mean, I could feel my father. And it was held together with a great big rubber band. And if you take the rubber band off and I opened it up, the pages would fall apart. And that is a testament to how much he studied that book. I mean, he just studied that thing to no end. And he never felt like he knew it all. He was always learning. That's an important thing. I mean, if you think about it, if you have an interest in something, if you were to study for just 15 minutes a day, do you know how many hours that would add up to over a year of intense study on any one subject? You're going to get really good at something if you just did 15 minutes a day. And that's where it's
And you
all
know
at.
what I just thought of? That's even with when people feel overwhelmed that they have to learn something or they have to even get in shape or whatever, just 15 minutes of intentional doing something, even if that's movement for your body, which I appreciated how your father felt about nutrition and exercise too. Your body is the vessel in which you have, in order for him to get up on stage and do these powerful and passionate presentations, he had to be healthy. I mean, it's everything. You hit on everything. I know when he said, he told you a pro is at their best regardless. So even if you're not a pro, be your best regardless.
Right.
I love that. I mean, I'm telling you.
It just comes down to being the best version of yourself every single day. Be your best regardless, no matter what's going on out there. If we're the best version of ourselves every day and we give that conscious attention, the people that we love that are close to us, we're going to treat them better. The people we're doing business, we're going to treat them better because we're going to be a better version of us. Imagine how your life will change just by doing that one thing in itself, just being the best version of you right now.
I'm okay. So I got to do this. See these? You know where I'm going with this?
I know where you're going with that.
Okay. So it's been said that you wear rose-colored glasses. Tell us about that. Here we go. Yeah.
That's
so
funny.
why are you so positive? If someone says to you, why do you always see the good in everything? This is a horrible situation, Brian.
Well, Dad always, there's a chapter, as you're alluding, there's a chapter in the book called Rose-Colored Glasses. And I feel I look at everything in life through rose-colored glasses. I always look for the good. And I do that because of my father. He basically taught me that right from when I was a young boy. And he always said that if there's a bad in anything, there's got to be a good to it. Some good can come out of it. We just have to look for it. He said there can't be good without bad, like there can't be hot without cold. It's all relative. So he said, why not look at things, look at the positive out of it. Even if something bad happened to you, look for the good out of it and harvest that and move forward. Don't keep hanging on to the negative. That just doesn't do us any good. We all know people who are negative, who think everything bad is going to happen, and bad things do happen because that's all they think about. And you don't want to be around that person because they're just so negative. They repel you. But think about the person that's always positive, that's always inspiring, that's always looking for the good. Well, you want to be around that person. They're fun to be with. They're nice. They're friendly. They're enjoyable. It's really just a way of living. That's all it is.
And the fact of the matter is your dad didn't have like this amazing, wonderful, gifted childhood.
Right.
And he had gone through, it was during, the Depression, and his father was a military man and was at war. Thank you for his service. And then he came back and was a different person.
Yeah.
So, and part of me, as I was reading that, this is my own flair, but part of me, as I was reading it, I was like, I wonder if his yearning for finding, it's not just about money. When people hear the book, Think and Grow Rich, they immediately think it's not all about money. Well, that book, if you've read it, it isn't just, it's about positivity and attracting all good things into your life. And also money's nice. You can do nice things for people and live better. But the reality of it is, as I was reading it, I was just like, wonder if all the studying he did to better himself was partly because he was trying to find it. He was trying to find that happiness. And because he did say, which is mind blowing to me, that, and I think I don't think this was in the book. I think I saw this on a YouTube video. You guys got to watch him on video on YouTube because his voice is piercing. Like sometimes he would go an octave up and I was just, oh my gosh. But he said having fun and being happy are two different things. Right. If you want to find happiness, that's a lot deeper. Fun is more surface. Like you can have fun and happiness goes to the core. And I think his journey of learning about looking for the good and being positive was part of that. Maybe because he just put action behind, maybe he wasn't all that happy and he was trying to find it.
Well, I think really where it all started was, when he became a success back in the early 60s, he just became obsessed with the idea of showing other people what he did. That's it. He just thought if everybody could be a success, boy, we'd all be happier. We'd all be doing better.
It's true.
And that's really it. And, Dad was always, when he talked about money, he always looked at money as a servant. He says, money will just make you more comfortable. It's not going to make you happier. Money will make you more of what you already are. If you're a miserable person, it'll make you more miserable. If you're a good person, it'll make you better. And my father was an incredible man. And anybody that knows him or that knows him well, one of the first things you're going to say is how generous he was. In his last years of life, he was earning some very, very large sums of money. And he was giving it his way as quickly as he earned it. He was helping organizations. He was helping people. He would do anything he could to help other people and other things out there. He just became better because of it. He didn't hoard it. He didn't, it was just, that was his way of being.
Yeah. He used it. Money is a start. That is really impressive. That is because, and you're right. More money makes you more of what you already are. Wow. That's crazy good stuff. And I have to say this because just you guys, your grandmother, your dad's mother, she liked to eat Hooters chicken wings. And I just visualize this older lady, like when you would go cross country and she knew where all the Hooters were, like, let's go get some chicken wings. And you're like, okay. I mean, how cute is that? My God.
It was sweet. It was really funny. Nan loved Love the Hooters chicken wings.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So
Yeah.
I know that we're I could talk to you all night. We know this. I have 3 pages of notes, but you're also going to be on Hey, I'm Talking Here with Steve Rizzo in August. So I'm going to be able to join in and maybe ask some more questions at that point. But one of the things that there's so many quotes, and one of them is caring so much about what someone else thinks of you, you need to love yourself. But now I can't find where I wrote that. What's the actual? It says you don't worry about other people, and if they like you, you need to like yourself. And I mean, if you like yourself, and not everyone's going to like you, so
Right.
why worry about it, right? And
Exactly.
so I loved that, because sometimes we can get into, I don't know, I like for people to like me. And I like everyone else. I don't have anything really. So when someone seems to have something wrong, I always think, well, why? But I need to remember, I like me, so it's okay.
Mhm.
It's just, there's a lot of really good, as people say, value bombs in this book. And I was feeling it. I was just like so in tune with it. And when he said faith and fear, and I've heard some of these, and you guys have too, some of these quotes, and I just didn't register in my brain who the author of them was. And it was Bob Proctor. Like, faith and fear both demand that you believe in something you cannot see. You choose.
That's right.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
so impressive.
he was always about the way we think. That was it. It was always about the way we think. We choose our thoughts. If we just think about all the bad things that can happen, well, guess what's going to happen? That's what you're putting energy towards. So, he was always of the opinion that we've got to control our thoughts and make sure we're focused on what we want, no matter what's going on around us.
Yeah.
And it's when bad things are going on around us that we need to know that more than any other time. That's when we got to stay focused on what we want to do, what we want to be, how we want to be, and be that person, no matter what's going on around us. If we can do that, you stay in control of your thinking. And it's such an important thing.
And the way you've written this book and the lessons that you were taught by your father, I'm not doing any justice. I mean, you have to be able to read the real book and get from it what you're delivering. I can't go on about it anymore. But I want to, if you don't mind, can you tell the story? I was gasping at the chapter about your dad, and this was before he had made it, and he was learning, and he wanted to give, and he believed in what, the law of attraction and the positivity and seeing the good and all of the things. And he ended up going to a prison, and he had to pull a lot of strings and go through a lot, jump through hoops in order to be able to do this. But he would drive 3 hours, I think, to get to this prison, only to, okay, the story about the one inmate who only wanted to come to his presentation because he could get out of the cellar because he was a really bad inmate. And he would, can you tell about that? I was like, oh my gosh. And then what ended up happening? Oh my gosh. You got to tell this.
So this was, it was a long time ago. It was probably in the 60s when Dad was first starting to study this material. And he just wanted to teach it wherever he could. We lived in Toronto at the time. And Kingston, which is about 3 hours away from Toronto, had the Kingston Penitentiary, which was the most famous high, whatever you call it.
Like really lockdown.
Yeah. The worst people in Canada, that's where they were sent to, was Kingston Penitentiary. And so he worked out a deal that he could go into Kingston Penitentiary and teach for an hour. I believe it was one Saturday a month.
Yeah.
And he said, but I want it to be able to be open to anybody. And they fought back on him that. They said, no, you can't have it open to anybody because there's some pretty bad people here. And he says, no, I believe that this can change anybody. And this was at the time when the government was really trying to work on reducing recidivism, so that people weren't going back into jails. Right. So anyways, they said, okay, and they did it. So he started going, and he was basically doing a seminar to inmates showing them how they can control their thinking and be a better version of themselves, so that when they got out, they wouldn't get back into crime. They would start to do something productive. Well, when he started going, there was one guy that was always sitting in the back, and he was a big guy. His name was Joe, and Joe was in solitary confinement. And Joe was basically in prison for life. He had shot somebody in a holdup, and fortunately, the person didn't die. If the person had died, Joe would have been hung. At that time, Canada was hanging people, but the person didn't die. So he was in for, I guess, attempted murder. And he was a really nasty guy. And he was a tough animal, big burly guy. And he would sit at the back table, and he was basically heckling my father. He was heckling him really bad. And everybody in the prison was terrified of this guy. The warden actually called him a mad dog. And so, it got to the point that it was disrupting the meetings. And Dad, at that time, you got a picture. He was younger. It was in the 60s. He maybe weighed 150 pound dripping wet, bright red hair, super skinny guy. And you can picture him going into a prison and doing this. Well, he started to think, this isn't working. I've got to deal with this guy in some way. But he got really, we talk, how we talk to ourselves. This is a great example, and the worry that we can create. Well, he started thinking he's got to do something, or there's no point in doing these meetings, because he wasn't being effective because of this guy. Well, this one time he's driving back out to Kingston. He had 3 hours to think about it as he's driving. And he thought he's got to deal with it head on, or it's just not going to work. And he couldn't let the guards deal with it, because then he would lose credibility. So once he got there and he started speaking, well, Joe started heckling again. Well, my father walked right back to the back of the room, right face to face with him. And I don't remember the exact wording, but he said,
it was funny.
You got to be the stupidest son of a bitch I've ever met. He said, if you were to just listen to what I'm teaching here, you'd be able to get out of this place and live a great life. He says, I earn more money in an hour than you could probably steal in a month. And he says, when I leave here, I'm going to get in a comfortable car and I'm going to drive home and I'm free. When I leave, you're going to be turned around and put back in solitary confinement. So if you start to, if you smarten up and think about it and listen to this, we might be able to get you somewhere. And Joe, his face was turning red. Dad was getting terrified. He didn't know what was going to happen. Well, then Joe just started laughing at him. And Dad turned around, walked back to the front of the room, and that was that. Well, the next month when he went back, guess who's sitting at the front of the room? It was Joe. He was sitting at the front of the room. He was listening. And if anybody else in that room said or did anything, Joe would look at them. He just had to look at them, and that would shut him down. Joe became my father's biggest advocate. It was incredible. And several years later, Joe was able to get out of prison because he was that reformed. And he actually ended up coming and working for my father in the business for quite a while, in a cleaning business, and was one of his best people. And for me as a child, as soon as I heard the story for the very first time, I knew who it was. We called him Uncle Joe as kids. And I can remember Uncle Joe. He was called Uncle Joe because he was a close friend of Dad's now. I mean, you think about how things can turn around, but it's all because of the way,
I was literally gasping when he said, I was like, oh no, he's walking to the back where he's, oh my gosh, how's this, and I thought, well, he lived until he was 87. He just passed away last year. So obviously Joe didn't get him, but oh my gosh, it was like a page turn. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, he knew he had to, practice what he preached, right? And fight the fear. And oh, that was incredible. Okay. So Dee wants to know, please repeat the 4 letters to picture when meeting a new friend.
Sure. It's MMFI, and that stands for Make Me Feel Important.
And Dee, you just won a book. Dee just won a book. Yay! She's our first winner. Winner, chicken dinner. So this book, Dee, this is just, oh my gosh, it's just what you need right now, my friend. I'm so excited to send this to you. And oh, yay for you. Okay, so before I ask the last question that I ask everybody that's on the show about
Mhm.
finding it, I want to know, is there anything, your father passed away last year. It's really fresh. I mean, you could be soured about that because you lost him, but you're seeing the good in it.
Mhm.
But is there anything else you could share with us that you have thought about since you've written the book that you could share with us, or anything that you would like to share before I ask my last question?
Well, I was fortunate when Dad was at the end of his life. I spent pretty much the last 6 months with him. I went up to Toronto and I helped his wife, and I was there with Dad the bulk of the last 6 months. And we got to say everything we wanted to say to each other, which was great. One of the greatest gifts that he gave me, he says, Brian, after I'm gone, because he says, I'm going. I'm not going to be here much longer. He says, I want you to still talk to me every day. And I have to say it was difficult at first. But he says, just talk to me every day. He says, just find a special place and just talk to me every day and ask me a question. And I get kind of choked up when I even start thinking about it. But he said, you'll hear my answer in your intuition, in that inner voice. And he says, always listen to it. And after he was gone, I was presented with a business situation that didn't feel right. And I listened to my intuition, and it was, telling me what I really needed to do, which I did. And it was the best move I ever made. And so the biggest thing I learned at the very end was to truly listen to our intuition. If we follow and lead with our heart, it'll always be right for us. It might not be right for somebody else, and it might not be right for somebody close to you. But if you follow your heart and be the best version of you, you're going to do better for everyone around you. But more importantly, you're going to do better for you. That's probably one of the biggest things at the end of his life that I really got.
And the fact that he named the book, let's just be real. That came to you in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
He
Well,
named the
I'll
book.
tell you what's been really nice, Debbie, is the response and the reviews that are coming in on the book, the feedback we're getting. It's just been wonderful. And I love it because this book is really, it's not about me. It's about my father, and it's the lessons I learned from Dad. So I feel really good about it. And I know this book will change lives. I actually had somebody in England who's a personal coach. They bought over 700 copies of the book to give away to all of their clients. I thought, wow, that's just
smart. That's
yeah.
smart. I mean, you want your people reading this type of material, and hopefully they'll really read it because, it is going to help you live a better life. And I'm taking it very seriously. And I told you, Brian, I almost called you Bob. I know people do that all the time. I told you before we went live that what in the world could I have done and accomplished had I had this information as a young girl? And that's why I bought copies for my kids, because I'm like, I am giving you an amazing gift, Brian, that you have written and that you're sharing with the world. It's just incredible. And I'm just so thankful that Ken Walls had you as a guest speaker on Grow Live Academy, and I got to meet you. And then thought, I can ask you to be on the show. I fight the fear and ask, and you said yes.
There
So
you
you
go.
don't know, and that's another lesson in here.
All it
People
takes.
don't ask.
Yeah.
It's always gonna be no if you never ask. So, and also when he says you learned, just do it. The how you'll figure out how. Just start. The how will come later. But I didn't read on page 150. I had it highlighted. I've been a highlight. But I loved when your dad said, any dummy can tell me what's wrong. I want somebody to tell me what's right. It made me chuckle, but there is some truth in that. When things are going wrong and everyone's like this and this and this. Well, no, any but dummy can see what's going wrong, but what can we do to make it right? I love that. But about the rose-colored glasses, that when you say, I choose to live my life this way. I live a much happier, healthier, and more productive life because of this conscious choice. So, if nothing else, I mean, everybody needs the book, but if nothing else, remember, if someone drives you crazy because they're wearing rose-colored glasses, ask yourself why you aren't.
It's a good question.
I mean, why? Why not? But the last question that I thank you so much for indulging me and my people that are watching right now and the people who will watch later. And the question that I ask everyone, because the show's called Find It, is what have you found in life that you can share with us to inspire us to find it too?
Well, if I was to pick one thing, you mentioned this quote. I think it was before we went live. One of my favorite sayings that Dad always said. He said it in a seminar, and I just loved it. He said, "You can't change the time you got out of bed this morning. What's happened in the past has happened in the past, and it just is what it is. The only thing we have control of is the present moment. And if I was to pick what it is, it's living in the present moment. Whether you've had a good past or a bad past doesn't really matter. All you've got is right now. And if you can be the best version of you right now, that's it. That's everything. I truly believe that we will accomplish a lot more if we live in the present moment. We'll be much more productive. And I think we'd be a lot more fun to be around. That's what I would say. That's my answer for you.
Wow. And that, one of the lessons that I was learning from your dad as through you was, if you could erase all of your past and just start today with who you want to be,
right? You
can do that if you're really truly living in the moment.
Right.
And you guys,
yeah. Well, I was always taught you got to go after what you want. Go after your dreams, and don't let somebody talk you out of it. If you want to have that big home, that big business, travel the world, it doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, we all have different wants and needs. But he was always of the opinion that we've got to go after what we really want. And most of the time, if it's a big enough want, we won't even know how to get there, but we'll get there a step at a time and figure it out. And if we don't know how to get there, the growth that's going to take place within us is going to be tremendous because we're going to learn so much. And he was always about taking action. And even if it's imperfect action, just take action. Every step towards whatever it is that you want to be, how you want to be, do, or have, whatever you want in this world. We're all capable of it. If somebody else can have it, so can we. We just have to find our way. And I believe we find that way by living in the present moment. Forget the past, quit worrying about the future, and just do the best you can right here, right now.
Boom.
There you go.
Mic dropper. Wow. Thank you so much, Brian. I know your dad's just smiling down on this. And I just felt like it was meant for us to meet. I know that might sound hokey, but I really felt like, gosh, it was meant for us to meet. And, my first business was my logo is a butterfly. And I always say it transforms into a more beautiful version of yourself inside and out. And, when you say several times about being the best version of yourself, it just resonates because I believe that too. I really do. Yeah. But with that, I want to say thanks again. And thanks to everyone listening and everyone that's tuned in. And I got to say, our last winner for this evening is Kelly Prater. Kelly Prater. And I will get your addresses so I can get those books mailed to you as soon as possible because you need it in your hands ASAP. So with that, thank you so much, Brian. Hang out for just a second so I can tell you bye behind the scenes. Thank you. Thanks a lot for listening, you guys. And I'll see you again next week, same time, different guest. Next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.
That floats around me, keeping me safe and sound.